And welcome back to another TERF Talk Down Under. I'm Stasia, and with me is Ange.
Hi.
Hi, Ange.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. It's finally raining. I checked the last 14 days. We've had 13 days in a row above 30 degrees.
Yeah, I've been down the beach. I've been in another state, just turfing everywhere I go, just having a wonderful time. I had nearly 10 days in Queensland a couple of weeks ago, came back for 2 weeks and then took off and did 5 days on the south coast of Victoria and into South Australia. And got away from social media, got away from all the stress at home.
But you couldn't escape the trans women.
Yeah, I didn't escape the trans women. I actually ended off camping next to one. And which didn't really bother me. But I had to laugh that I go all that distance, like a 5-hour drive from Melbourne, and it's like, oh, what's something funny about this lady, and it's like, oh, not a lady at all. But she was a long-term, she'd obviously been that way for a long time, so and was not part of whatever's going on, had no idea at all. So
That's
but
interesting. And but you said he was married to a man, so
in a relationship with a man, so but I came back relaxed and not very stressed and looking forward to, seeing my kids and getting back into life. And 5 minutes on Twitter and Facebook looking at the latest stories, and I was anxious and irate again.
The Jennifer Swayne thing.
That really freaking infuriated me.
Yeah.
Because I'm next and you're next.
Maybe. That was interesting watching that unfold, because I'm actually friends with her on Facebook.
Me too.
Yeah, so it was her husband jumped onto her Facebook account and said, "Hi everyone, this is Jennifer's husband, and I'm just letting you know she's been arrested for stickering." And what an absolute overreaction from the police.
Yeah. And as I was just saying before, I saw a headline today that said England and Wales have the highest recorded rapes and sexual offences. They've hit a record high. So instead of out catching rapists and sexual offenders, they're arresting women for stickering.
Yeah.
And some of the stickers that she was putting up were calling out male violence against women. They were not offensive. And like she's never used the word trans in any of her stickers. But they're about women's rights and they're about protecting women from male violence. And yet she's been dragged into the slammer and, interrogated. Well, the same country has got record sex offences. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Same's happening here, though, because we've got an epidemic of male violence against women. Like it's a plague. I work in the sector and it is, we just cannot keep up with the volume of people that are seeking services. We can't. And yet we've got all these celebrated domestic violence perps being, traipsed out in front of the media as these wonderful guys, particularly football players like Wayne Carey, Ben Cousins, and our friend Danny Laidley. All recent domestic violence perps.
Yeah.
And all is forgotten.
Speaking of Laidley, so AFLW have this Pride round. I think it's this weekend. And apparently he's going to be tossing the coin at one of these matches.
Yeah, and at a women's football league, one, it's insulting because he's not a woman, and two, he's a recent domestic violence perpetrator. And the media just... he would fart and they'd go, oh, how stunning and brave. Anything he does makes the news. And yet all the horrible things that he did doesn't. They're all forgotten.
Yeah, it's outrageous, just outrageous. But this whole Pride match, it kept coming up in my feed on Facebook. And so I just posed the question in the comments. I was like, oh, did the men's division have a Pride round? No. There's apparently one Pride match between 2 of the men's teams once a year. But, it's again that thing of women having to do all this sort of charitable work to lift people out of poverty or difficulty. It just makes me think of that.
Well, when you think of all the lesbians that play football, why aren't one of them tossing the coin? Why does it have to be a trans identifying male?
Yeah.
Why is Pride and, you know, in the women's league all about the trans and the queer? Why isn't it a celebration of lesbians? Why isn't it to raise awareness about the challenges that lesbians face, you know, or something like that? Nah, it's about the blokes
because
and non-binaries.
That's it, because all the lesbians are now non-binary. And the ABC ran this huge story. It was like nearly 1,500 words, which is a really long article. For comparison, the Age newspaper, if you're writing an op-ed for them, it's got to be 750 words or less. So like that's like an essay devoted to these two lesbian women from an AFLW, declaring that they're not women anymore. And it was just completely uncritical. And a couple of times in the article, one of these non-binary women that they're quoting, she used the words educating people.
Cult.
And every time I hear it now, all I think of is re-education camps.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is. It's a cult. It's a freaking cult. Yeah. And they're all members of it.
Yeah. Very sad that gender non-conforming lesbians think that they have to transition or not be women. And I watched, if anyone knows, GNC Central on YouTube. It's run by a gender non-conforming lesbian woman. and she was on there having a chat with another detransitioned woman. So they were both identified as trans for a long time, and they're having a conversation. And eventually one of them said she didn't know that lesbians could look like she looks. She thought that if you were a lesbian and you looked like her, then you had to be a trans man or a non-binary. This is the message that young lesbians are getting these days.
Yeah, because they're told that lesbian is the porn version, which is lesbian for the male gaze.
Yeah, yeah.
They grow up on a diet of pornography where lesbians are gender conforming women with each other.
Yeah.
And that to me is like not the lesbians I grew up with. They're all gender non-conforming. And if you were a gender conforming woman, you were bisexual. That was just how it was, you know. So it's really bizarre for me to see women that don't identify with the butch lesbian, you know. It's just odd to me.
Yeah. Very sad. Look, the other thing that's happened today, well, let's keep the sports theme going because we were talking about AFL. Leah Thomas has been in the news, I think today or yesterday, the male swimmer that's destroying women's swimming at Penn University or something in the USA. A story's come out where some of his teammates are talking about how uncomfortable they are with him in the change rooms. Like he's in there naked, showing his fucking dick off, and they go and complain to the coach, and the coach does nothing. Like, and apparently there's 35 women on that team. 35 of you, like just you know, have a sit-in or something. Just say, no, we're not swimming today. Because he's in our change rooms. Do it consecutively for, you know, weeks on end until the coach gets the fucking point. And, you know, USA Swimming gets the point.
You know, it's funny. I speak a lot of men who are bringing up that topic with me about him.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that men don't give a shit about men in women's domestic violence services or rape shelters, but they give a crap about sport because they can actually tangibly understand it as men who play sport. That pisses me off, but it is sometimes a gateway into them thinking about, well, hang on, how would I feel if they were in other women-only spaces. So sometimes it's a gateway to full-on TERFism. But, but at least people are talking about it. At least people are talking about Laurel Hubbard, and at least they're talking about this dude. That's something. I saw, I logged onto Twitter last night. I saw Helen Joyce posted something where a feminist had a look at the law regarding flashing.
Yeah.
They said that if someone was in a women's change room and a guy flashed at them and then claimed that he was transgender, they wouldn't convict him. So that's what it's come to. In that country where their rape and sexual assault are out of control, and where flashing is, one of the first markers to that sort of behaviour, but it's also the most common form of sexual assault is flashing. So now they're saying if a man identifies as trans and says, oh, no, I was just getting changed, like at the Wee Spa, oh, I was just getting changed, then they're not going to get convicted. And that's ridiculous. And I reckon it would be the same here.
Yeah, probably. I'd be interested to know where the Wee Spa, because they arrested him. I'd like to know where that's up to, but no one seems to be reporting on it.
No.
But yeah, a friend of mine, she works for a council-run gym here in Melbourne, and there's a trans woman who has been using the women's change rooms. And he just stands in there doing his hair for like half an hour. And my friend said when she walks in there, he's not only just doing his hair, he's making eye contact with her, like staring at her as she's walking in. And she went and sort of brought it up with the manager. And the manager says, oh, yeah, we've had heaps of complaints about him, but there's nothing we can do about it.
There is something they can do about it. They have to look into it. They have to, people say, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. But there is. Women are protected.
Yeah. Just outrageous. And considering that it's a council-run gym, I've sort of had the idea, I wonder if I can send a freedom of information request to the gym and ask how many complaints have been made about men being in the women's change rooms.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, it's never
ending. The reason I'm fuzzy today and there's funny noises is because there's a thunderstorm basically over my house. So that's not my tummy rumbling. It's actually thunder, and I look a bit fuzzy because I may disappear at any time with a lightning bolt. So, yeah. I'm just livid, honestly. Just coming away and coming and looking at it all with fresh eyes again.
Yeah.
And the thing that's getting me, though, and I've mentioned it before, is the frustration about things here in Australia. We are so far behind the UK and even the US of A.
Yeah.
There are so few women talking about this. There are no men, apart from Bernard Lane and a few of the right-wingers on Sky News just nodding their heads.
You're right.
There's nobody talking about this here. And yet we have self-ID in Victoria, and the effects of that are devastating. They've impacted on me personally and people that I, deal with, clients and people like that. So they're impacting on us directly, and very few people are speaking out. And it's really frustrating for me, and there's some women that are doing great work, but I feel like few are carrying the burden of many. And it's very frustrating. And I don't expect everyone to come out in their own name like me and rant and rave. But I do think that in a small way, people can step up and they can, say, oh, look, what can I do while I still stay behind the scenes? Because at the moment I'm putting my hand up going, who wants to make some stickers that we can sell so we can have a legal fund for when one of us eventually gets sued, because it's going to happen. And people go, I say, what about this date? And it's like, we've got to do this stuff because before we know it, we're all going to be we're going to be in the getting dragged in like Jennifer Swayne for saying no to men.
Yeah.
And or protecting our kids at school, saying no, this kid is not going into the girls' toilet or something like that. We're going to get dragged in, and we need to prepare for that.
Yeah,
because it's happening. It's going to happen.
I watched Posey Parker, the episode she did on just after the Jennifer Swayne stuff. And
I didn't see it.
And I completely agree with her. It's like, what is it going to take for you to speak out?
Yeah.
Rapists in women's prisons. We don't know exactly what's happening with that in Australia because I think we just don't have enough women to fight all the fronts of this war, and no one's really looking in depth at prisons yet. But
a trans woman was looking at it, Paulie. He was looking into, because he was an ex-con, and you won't mind me saying this because he said it on Twitter. He's an ex-con, and he was really concerned about trans identifying males being in women's prisons.
There you go.
And he sent off freedom of information, and they took forever. I don't even think he ever got them back. And there was nobody would answer his messages, and he's a trans identifying person, and they wouldn't respond. He was asking the government what the statistics are, how many are in which jail, blah, blah, blah. So someone has actually been attempting to do it, but it's a trans identifying dude who is not, on our team, basically.
Well, not anymore. Actually, the guest that we've got coming on in a bit, she hasn't arrived yet, but she's been looking into it up in Queensland. So she'll be able to shed some light, but the policies are different for each state. So we sort of need someone in each state and territory or to be sending off FOI requests. But just back to Posey Parker, it's like, what is it going to take for people to speak out?
I'm going to, one episode I'd like to talk, because I've been doxxed. I've been brutally doxxed, not in relation to the gender stuff, although it's become about that. But I've spent nearly 5 years having my reputation trashed, 4 years in court with the court date coming up. I've had my family attacked. I've lost my income. Like I've had like one of those doxings that you read about that is like your worst nightmares, like sexual stuff towards my kids, people trying to set me up with being a pedo, like really demented stuff, right? And I went quiet for a while, and then I've come back louder than ever on this gender issue. But I want to talk about how your worst nightmare is, like that's the worst thing that could ever happen. And I've lived through it, and I would do it all again over this gender stuff. Yeah. Because it's that important. Yeah. And if the worst does happen, there's new laws now that can protect you from doxing. There's a whole bunch of new stuff that didn't exist when it happened to me. So the fear is, I'm going to lose my job, or this is going to happen, and that's, and people are going to bitch about me online and whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be the worst thing that ever happened to you. In fact, for me, having that awful thing happen has made me fearless. It's made me absolutely freaking fearless. And being forced to shut up because the police said get off Facebook has made me 100 times more irate and louder. And my Twitter followers have gone up because the police and this stalker have tried to push me down. And I listened for 2 years. And then something just clicked and I went, nah, stuff ya. And, I've managed to, well, I don't know, you're probably all laughing at me, but I've managed to claw back my reputation. I've managed to, recover work and actually get offered work in a field that I'm more interested in than what I was doing. I've managed to get rid of all the defamatory material that was out there, and it's taken a toll, but I'll do it again. This gender stuff is that important, and I'm risking a lot speaking out like this, but I do it.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times that I get people sending me articles in private chats, it's like, I just want to tell them, you make the post, put it on your personal page, come out.
Make a sock account. There's nothing wrong with having a sock account.
Oh, that.
Sock account. And you don't have to put your face up. I've got 2 badge making machines here that we can make badges that we can sell at events to put some money in our legal slush fund, which we're going to need. And I can't get volunteers. We've got ideas for stickers and the things that Posey does that she needs in order to, we've got all those ideas here in Australia because we're going to need everything that they have to fight back. And yet I can't even get volunteers to help me with that. And I can't do everything. I've got 4 children and I'm trying to work 2 jobs, like I just can't.
You know what, I don't know if I mentioned this, but something I've been thinking of is we just need a permanent presence somewhere. So
regular protests.
My idea was like, the last Sunday of every month or something like that, we meet in the city and we wear our T-shirts, adult, human, female, or whatever you've picked. And we hand out leaflets and we talk to people, and you and I could do our little, street talk interview. Like,
yeah.
What do you think of men in women's prisons? And and just so that, like in the UK, they have Speaker's Corner, right? So something kind of like that, where we're just there once a month and we're reaching out to people and people are learning about what's happening. I think that could be powerful.
Yeah, and we have to do it within, of course, the boundaries of the, hate crime stuff. But I think that would be really good. And street talk too is very important. And we can change locations so that the trolls can't follow us and cause trouble. And no, I
think we just stand firm, and we do it in the same place every month. And we have someone that's permanently recording. So if any fucking trans activist comes up, we can capture it on film and send it off to Sky News.
Yeah. Well, I've been threatened with fists and stuff. So, I'm a bit nervous about being assaulted actually by trans activists. So, but, bring it on.
Yeah.
A cop of punch if it's going to help.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
What's more likely to happen is I'm going to be, when I finish with the court with this crazy psychopath I've had to deal with for 5 years, you know what's going to happen? One of these trans activists that's trying to bait me at the moment is going to drag me before a tribunal, and I'm going to be in another thing of trying to defend myself.
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen because in their minds, misgendering is the biggest crime.
It's a hate crime.
It's a hate crime. Misgendering.
Crazy.
Of all the rotten things that happen to women, myself included, the disgusting and horrible and rotten things happen to the women at the hands of men, and nobody cares. Nobody does anything. You could go to the police like I have for 5 freaking years, and it took them 4 years to do anything. And yet one of these guys goes, she misgendered me, and you're in some freaking tribunal up for tens of thousands of dollars. And the thing is, people think by putting their hand, their head in the sand, that they're going to avoid this. But they're not, because while we do nothing and while we don't fight back the way they are in the UK and in some ways in the US, the laws are going to change to the point that we'll have nothing.
We won't even be able to speak about it. Yeah.
No, we're not going to be able to. And in Victoria, in my home state, it's the worst of the worst. And the media is complicit too. The media are protecting their side of things. They know we are here. They know that there are women speaking out against this ideology, and with good reason, and they're just all quiet. And I've had ABC journalists say to me, to my face, that they agree with us ideologically, but they will not speak out because they will lose their jobs.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a real difficult battle at the moment. It really is.
All we need is a couple of journos, and even Channel 9 having that survey, that was brave of them. There needs to be more of that. I mean, they did, they sort of went down the trans line of things, but the public said, nah, we don't agree with men and women's sport.
Yeah.
And, there was a clear message sent. And so, that was a good start, but there needs to be more balance. There is zero balance. It's biased.
Yeah. You just reminded me of Cara Dansky.
Oh, yeah, she's a legend.
She got on Tucker Carlson this week and had 50 minutes to talk about this stuff.
He's sweet on Cara. Cara, if you're watching, he's sweet on you. How fun is that? Yeah.
There was a really funny bit where she was pointing out how the trans activists claim to be the most oppressed on the planet, blah, blah, blah. But she was like outlining how much power they actually do have. They're getting people fired and all this sort of stuff. And he was laughing, like it had never dawned on him before that to look at it in this way. And he was laughing in this really sort of girlish, high-pitched laugh.
Yeah, he's like a giggling schoolgirl. He was like, ooh, yeah, that's what's making me laugh. I think he was like in awe because he's like, right leaning and she's like a lefty feminist. And I think he was like a bit bedazzled by her. I think he had preconceived ideas of what feminism looks like and maybe even preconceived ideas that she would be a man-hater. And then I think he was just like a bit like, ooh, she's awesome. It was really funny for me to watch, actually.
Right.
Because, because I don't look like a feminist either. So I kind of get that. People have preconceived ideas of what feminism is and looks like. And particularly for some of these blokes who've never really encountered a real feminist before, it can be quite confronting in good and, they're surprised how much they go, oh, we have things in common. I think porn's abusive towards women too, and things like that. I think it's great. It was really fun to watch. It was a serious topic, but the interaction between the two was really entertaining.
I just realized something. I'm so sorry. The guest that we're meant to be having on, she's in Queensland.
Oh.
And I completely forgot to account for the time difference.
As happened with me when I was in Queensland, yeah. Well, maybe we're gonna have a pause and then we can come back when she's back.
We might have to, I think.
Yeah. Can we do that? And you'll have to mash us up together.
Yeah, I'll have to stick the video together. Shit.
Oh, that's hilarious. Because we have to have our guests. Our guests have to get the full, they can't just have me ranting for ages.
Are you doing a good rant today?
I'm so mad. I'm so angry. And I had such a good holiday and I just want to go back to the beach,
But that Cara Dansky interview, like, I've tagged, Rita, I think it's pronounced Panahi at Sky News. I've tagged her a couple of times and said, because she's just got this new program on Sky News and she's got an hour, like 3 nights a week or something like that. And I've tagged her and said, you need to do a whole episode of your new program devoted to the transgender issues.
Yeah.
Get 2 or 3 women on to really nut it out and speak about what the impact is.
I think we should start tagging a few journalists in some of this stuff, especially some of the Four Corners journos, because there's some really amazing female journalists out there who know this is bad.
Yeah.
And they're just not saying anything. I've sent a few things off to people and I haven't heard anything back. And I take that as a acknowledgement. I haven't been banned by them. So usually if somebody doesn't like what I say, I get blocked. So yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, but I do send things off.
You had a couple of interesting things happen on Twitter this week. I don't know if you want to talk about them. You don't have to name names.
Which one?
You said someone messaged you.
No, I had a nice lady who watches our show message and say that she appreciates what we do and she has to remain anonymous because of her job. But yeah, she was very positive. And the thing I really liked was that she said, look, I can't speak publicly, but in my own way, I'm making a difference. And I was on holidays when I got that message and I was really chuffed. Yeah, I was really pleased, that she's watching us, hello, and that, we inspire her to, to sort of in her own way, behind the scenes, make a change. So, it's good. It's good that we're getting out there, that people can see that we are here in Australia and we have a profile as mouthy TERFs, that we're not these horrible transphobic man haters, that, we're concerned about women's rights and children's rights.
Yeah. Well, there is a man, I don't know if I hate him, but I certainly have zero respect. This just came up in the news today. Regina K. Arthurell, he's a trans woman or trans-identified male in New South Wales, I think it is. And
a serial killer.
He's a serial killer. 3
people.
He got done twice for manslaughter and once for outright murder. He murdered his female, I think it was his fiancée. He's spent something like 25 years in prison for that. And now he was out on parole. There was a bit of hoo-ha when he came out on parole, which I agree with. Like, how do you murder someone and then get released back out into the public, like, especially when you've done it 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, but when he was in prison, he began to identify as a woman. So when he got out of prison, there were all these articles about how difficult he's finding it to adjust to life as a woman on the outside, and all the transphobia that exists in society that is, trying to get him to go back to prison.
Yeah.
So all the articles were sympathetic to a person who has killed 3 people, used only female pronouns, and was empathetic about the transphobia that this person, who looks like a scary serial killer with a bad wig, that she was experiencing.
Well, he's fucked up. He's gone and grabbed his friend's genitals.
I'm so shocked.
And he's done it to a man, and this man has complained to the police, and because he's on these very strict probation, that his probation was very strict apparently, I assume he's going to be back in prison. But just the way that the news outlets reported on this, I looked at news.com.au, Perth Now, but even the Daily Telegraph, not one of them mentioned that he's actually a man. So it was all woman, she, her, blah, blah, blah. The Australian, however, they did mention that he was a transgender woman or something like that. But it was like 4 paragraphs down into the article. So, and I know this has happened so many times, but it's just so tiring,
Did he go back to male jail?
Well, that's it. Or will he go into a women's? Surely not. Surely not.
Have a guess what the number one paraphilia is for people who go on to commit sex-based crimes. Have a guess.
Cross-dressing.
Yeah, that's it. Cross-dressing.
And
if you could explain to me how I tell the difference, apart from one's part-time and one's full-time, between a cross-dresser and a trans woman, I would appreciate that.
That's it. Yeah.
Because that's the only difference. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Oh, one's part-time and in secret, which is the cross-dresser, and one lives as a woman full-time. And that's the only difference. So he's, the fetish makes it out of the bedroom, and all of a sudden he's a trans woman.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous.
So frustrating. I've got 2 more things on my list of news items, and then I think we can end. And what I think I might do is just upload 2 videos today. So we'll do our interview with Steph later on, and I'll upload that. Yeah. Giggle.
Yeah, good on yourself. Yeah.
So that's been in the news recently. Apparently penis news, pink news, did another article. Like, it's well established, and Sal Grover hasn't been shy about saying that this is an app for females. Yeah. We exclude males, and Pink News is they're excluding trans women. And I think Business Insider or something like that also ran a story. They're excluding trans women. So keep going, Sal, if you're watching. Yeah. Awesome job.
It's really funny because when Sal was promoting Giggle, one of my friends who's a butch lesbian, one of my Facebook friends, she tried to get in, and the facial recognition said, "No, you're a man, right?" And she's like, "Oh, Sal, your app won't accept butch lesers like me." And we were all pissing ourselves. She thought it was the funniest thing, and then she did another one and she got in. You know what I mean? Yeah. But she was laughing her head off at the fact that as a butch looking woman she wasn't able to get in. She thought it was hilarious. And yet men are having a freaking meltdown,
Yeah,
they're all like offended and mortally wounded and whatever. She's not bothered that she got misgendered by an app.
Yeah, like
it's pretty funny.
Like Joe Smith the other week, she's talking about she's been misgendered. Yeah. God.
Yeah, it's a laugh, and they're such snowflakes. They are just so soft.
There was also this attempt in there to make out that Giggle was racist because Sel has got the assist, or she's paid another company for their facial recognition software. And apparently it's known that that facial recognition software has a bit of trouble identifying Black women as women. Mm-hmm. And look, that just made me think of something that happened in the US recently where some transgender group were like, oh, you've got to tie your campaign to other social justice movements like Black Lives Matter and anti-racist stuff. Because the transgender stuff isn't getting off the ground as well as they'd like. It's just call the TERFs racist they do.
Yeah. I've had, but I've seen trans activists who are all Black Lives Matter say, oh, trans women are women like Black women are women. That's the most racist thing you could possibly say. That is revolting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet they are like, oh, there's nothing racist about that because we're just women.
Outrageous, just outrageous. Last thing I wanted to talk about was this is UK news, but I think it's really significant. Their Equality and Human Rights Commission have come out and said, because the Scottish government are looking at reforming the Gender Recognition Act, which would basically means self-ID. But the equivalent here is the Australian Human Rights Commission, but their commission over there has said, oh no, there's no need to change the Gender Recognition Act. We've got to balance all the rights of everyone in society. So that's really significant.
Whereas we're all going to get charged with hate crimes soon when we change our laws. Yeah.
Meanwhile, here we've got the Australian Human Rights Commission advocating for males in women's sport and partnering with fucking Acon and all this shit. So frustrating. We've got a real long way to go here in Australia. Yeah.
Well, part of me is exhausted and just wants to just go, let someone else do it. And the rest of me goes, I want to grab this and just start getting really full on about it. But it's exhausting,
It is. Yeah.
It is. It is just exhausting. I've been at this for years and years. And then there's little things like, Twitter's trying to, I'm shadow banned and my follows and my followers are disappearing. And unless I post regularly, it just keeps taking away 20, 30 follows and followers. Oh. And there's little things like that, which is disheartening because sometimes you want to take a break and you just want to step back and go. But then I'm watching my account profile just disappear and then it won't have the reach that we need because, there's not many TERFs in Australia. Everyone's over on Facebook or other places and there's not really that many of us on Twitter. So I sort of feel an obligation to, carry the message almost. But yeah, it's a real trap. It's a real trap.
Yep.
Because I'm exhausted by this battle.
Same.
But then, we still have a massive mountain to climb. Yes, we have come far. The fact that there's 5 people following us on this channel, let alone 500 and something, is a massive achievement for this country. It is a massive achievement, that we have people like Kath appearing regularly on Sky News talking about men in women's sport. Holly gets interviewed a lot. There's other prominent feminist women and prominent academics that are, being spoken to by the mainstream media, mainly the right-leaning media, but still, we are making progress. But we're yet to have that moment the way that the US and the UK have. And that the thing was the Wii Spa in the US, and then this Penn State sports thing where people have gone, whoa. And in the UK, of course, it was Maya and then Kira Bell and then a whole bunch of other cancellations and stuff that's just snowballed into this grassroots activist movement. But yes, people like Posy Parker getting up every week, getting up to Speaker's Corner and ranting on her channel every week like we do, and all this stuff has a cumulative effect. But we need people to get involved, whether they don't have to put their faces up or anything like that, but we need to meet in person and we need to do things.
Yeah. No one's coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. I hope that our viewers understand that. Yeah.
I wish I could take every single person watching and put them in the room that I was in with the rape victim. When we walked into a recovery group for women that was women only, and there was a trans-identified male there. I wish I could take you all in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that is our future. That is our future.
Yep.
That is what our children, our kids, and everyone is going to have to deal with. Old people's homes, when you put your mum or your grandma in there and they're vulnerable.
Yep.
You know, and it's all this, and, you know, I mean, it's not just the trans, but it's, you know, that the Andrews government is putting unisex, everything, toilets, hospital wards, mental health wards, you name it, everything, because they've erased women from everything, is now unisex. But, you know, there's still provision in most places for, say, women-only toilets and women-only change rooms, and women-only emergency services, but they're being erased by the trans-identifying males. So we've got it on both levels. So there's males, you know, where equality means that all women's single-sex stuff has been erased, but the few things we have left have been invaded by the trans-identifying men. So really, if we you know, we've lost everything.
Yeah.
But you, whoever's out there watching, they just don't realise it yet because it hasn't impacted on them personally. And until it impacts on you personally, it's an abstract concept.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'm thinking about all those women at that gym that complained about the trans woman doing his hair and staring at them while he's doing it. I don't think they know where to go with this. They probably don't know that we exist, or, you know, the various groups around Australia exist. They just don't know who to reach out to yet.
Well, that we don't even know, because I've been assured, as someone involved in, you know, women-only services, I've been assured that we are still protected characteristic by our sex, and that because we're a crisis service, that we have the legal right to exclude trans-identified males, right? That's where I've been assured of that. But I still don't know what the legislation says.
Yeah.
Because sex and gender identity are both protected characteristics. And nobody can tell me if it's overriding each other.
That's it, that we really need clarification in the Sex Discrimination Act at the federal level so that it feeds down into the states and territories.
Yeah.
We need clarification and clauses. And the biggest clause that I think we really need is where women are in a state of undress. So that would be, you know, hospitals, change rooms, and toilets. No males allowed. Gender identity does not take precedence in those situations. That's what I think we need. Yeah. And on that note, let's break, and I'll see you in an hour with our guest, Steph.
Awesome. All righty. We'll see you later, guys. Thank you.
Bye.